This is one of the sexiest issues that I have seen on TV dealing with so many areas of law. So I am a family law practitioner. I used to be a criminal lawyer. So to see the intertwining of family law, criminal law, civil procedure, like it's super sexy. So it might be a little bit of a legal eagle nerdy thing, but I also wanted to come here because a lot of people don't understand what's happening. Right.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have to understand this was a hearing. A motions hearing. It was a motions hearing precipitated by the defendant saying that they want Fani Willis off because of two things: a conflict of interest and then forensic misconduct. Right? So people don't even understand what that means because they're thinking they're watching reality TV, a soap opera.
Yeah.
Or some entertainment law.
Yeah,
right? It's not entertainment law. This is somebody's life. Okay? So when we break down what the purpose of this hearing was to see if, one, there's a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest where has she benefited financially from putting Nathan Wade on as special prosecutor, right? And the way that you get there, or they try to reach that burden that they have to prove is, hey, you gave him this contract. He used the money from the contract to fund your relationship, to fund the excursions, to go to Napa, for the winery and things like that.
You flew out.
Right? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is forensic misconduct. What forensic misconduct is, and I want to make sure I quote it, is activity that could divert the jury from making a determination of guilt or innocence by weighing admitted evidence as a matter prescribed by law. Right?
Okay.
What's that mean? Basically, you about to stink up the jury pool because now you distracting us from what this real issue is, which is the criminal case of these 18 co-defendants.
Okay. Right.
All right?
Okay.
You follow me? So the reason why they are saying that, or the things that she's done that they believe constitute forensic misconduct is, I don't know if y'all caught it, but during the Martin Luther King celebration at Ebenezer, this is when the news of an affair broke out, and she addressed it in the pulpit when she was talking. They are saying that she made this about race because she talked about being a black woman and they don't want a black woman, and and really it's not about race, right? Did that really taint the jury pool? I don't know. The second thing that she was accused of is making statements in the press, calling them fake electors, using that term. That was a term that she made up. That's not a legal term. That's not anything except for what they're claiming to be prejudicial. Meaning like, hey, that's going to hurt us, so we don't
like it.
We don't like it. Right? And then the third thing is that they're claiming misconduct because she allegedly gave information about the criminal case to authors of a book. I haven't read the book. I don't know anything, but I do know that on CNN, the authors came on and talked about, and talked about, hey, you have to finish reading the paragraph in order to understand the context. So that's what is so tricky about her testimony and the way that she was conducting herself. The way, and my mom hit me up. She's like, Cherese, why is she over explaining? I said, Mama, it's a strategy. Right? Think about how many times you communicate with somebody and the miscommunication is because you disagree about what one word means. Right? That's what that is. So y'all see the court reporter that's there. She's typing it. She's typing everything, right? Y'all seen it.
Yes.
That's a court reporter. She's taking down the hearing. She's typing up the words. So later on, exactly. And so when you create a transcript, the only thing that like Court of Appeals and the higher court have to look at is what's called the record, right? So if you don't participate in takedown, meaning you don't pay that court reporter to type and do her job, you can't get a transcript. But if you get a transcript, you go up to the Court of Appeals, or you're trying to impeach her in some kind of way, or impeach her with a prior inconsistent statement, you got to have a transcript. So when she's up here explaining and getting cut off, right? She's getting cut off while she's talking. It's not over explaining. She's trying to be clear. Right. Because think about it. When at one point she said, no, listen, it was too many trips. So you got to tell me in these terms. Call this trip Aruba number 1 and call this trip maybe Aruba number 2. Because we're not going to mince words.
Yeah, she had to do the same thing with the residences.
Exactly, with the condo versus an apartment. Because if you looked at Nathan Wade's testimony, and I'm gonna keep it funky with you, I thought he was lying. Yeah. He was playing semantics, was personal relationship, close relationship, friendship, really trying to play a semantics game, and that to me didn't bode well. Okay. But then you have Fani coming up, and she corroborates everything.
Right.
But she did it so skillfully, y'all, and that's what is so amazing about this. She did it as a witness, as an attorney, as a DA, and an officer of the court, all while sitting in a witness stand.
Right.
Because notice, when they were objecting, Fani kept talking.
Yeah.
And guess what the judge did?
Just listen.
Yeah. Didn't do nothing. That's why this was such a mind-blowing thing to witness as a true trial attorney.
Right.
Because to see her skillfully, defend herself, realize that she's not on trial, but then mastering evidentiary objections in the middle of her testimony. Like, it was one point, they were asking her about the sex part, right? And just imagine, like, your genitalia being on trial.
Right.
You're going to get pissed off.
Heck yeah.
Right? Or she's having to defend what she has worked so hard for, right? Her reputation, her elected position. When you think about it, who's a real victim here?
Right.
Not just Fani, not just Mr. Wade, right? Mr. Wade's wife.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, completely disregarded her.
Let's talk about it, because she's been used. First of all, and again, like I do family law, so when we're talking about discovery and interrogatories and questions that you have to answer in divorce cases, DERFAs, the Domestic Financial Relations Affidavit, right? Only the financial affidavit is what we file in court, but the answers to interrogatories, somebody had to subpoena that. Now I don't know who got subpoenaed, but the fact that this divorce case is now intertwining, and now we're using affidavits from Cobb County divorce case into a criminal case in Fulton County. Put a pin right there. So that was one opportunity that Fani did not get to tell her side of the story. Right? So even though she may have been filing motions and motions to quash and things like that, meaning, and it's not squash. Don't put it's motion to quash. Okay?
Motion
not
to
squash.
quash.
And so
I'm sorry.
Basically, like, I know you subpoenaed me to come here, but I don't feel like I need to.
Right.
Okay.
And this is why.
Okay.
Right? In that situation, she again was not able to tell her side of the story, but she's getting fed with all these news headlines of affair.
Right.
But when you really look at it, if they were separated, because a lot of people, I have a lot of clients, hey, we're getting divorced now,
right.
Now that the kids are out the house. Guess what? The divorce is cheaper. You're not paying me to talk about custody, a parenting plan, child support. I don't have to fight over money. I ain't got to figure out income. The only thing we're dealing with is assets and debts, right? Makes it 10 times easier. But she gets to tell her side of the story.
Okay.
So now, when you then turn around and see the criminal side, because I don't even know if y'all caught this. Y'all saw her labor breathing when she came in. She almost bumped her darn head on the camera. She had to run from a different building in Fulton County to come to that courtroom when she learned that Mr. Wade was done with his testimony.
Oh, wow.
There was a motion to quash her testimony. Fani, as a witness, as an officer of the court, as a district attorney, came in and said, scrap it. Let's go. I'm ready. One thing I could probably think of is this is now her opportunity to say something.
Okay.
Right? Y'all done drug me through Twitter. Y'all done drug. I don't even know if it's Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. But y'all have dragged me all through this mess.
Yeah.
Right? And so now I want to tell my side.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to talk. And that's what made her credible. You know, because a lot of people are like, oh, she was an angry woman and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was authentic. It's unscripted. It's uncoached. And what she said was, hold my gray goose. Let me tell y'all what really happened. Right? So a lot of people that don't have that legal eye may have seen arrogance, may have seen anger, may have seen aggression. But attorneys have an obligation to the bar, to our clients, to the Constitution of Georgia and the United States of America. You can't just put stuff in a piece of paper and think that that's okay. So what she was holding up, I believe, because again, I wasn't there, but when she first took the stand, she asked for 3 pieces of paper, and they were going back and forth about what was filed, what was recently filed. Those are pleadings. Okay. Basically, any documents that are filed in the court, because everybody can see this stuff.
Right.
So when you are filing your paperwork, that's why you have to redact your social security numbers. You have to redact certain names. You have to really protect people's privacy. And so as an attorney, I can't just go out here and put some BS on a paper without, one, understanding what I'm doing, and number two, without doing some type of investigation.
Right.
Based on knowledge and belief. Right? Okay. So one of the things I remember during the trial or during the hearing was she said, he's never lived with me. He ain't never lived with me. And then we started going to the condo apartment doing that tango.
Right.
So,
I'm sorry.
But so if you put that in a document, what proof did you have for that? So now we might be talking about defamation. Right? So now we're teetering into if she's been damaged or harmed by defamatory comments. And guess what a defense is to defamation? Truth.
Facts.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, people see that she was upset, that she was angry, that she, you know, just kind of really came off rough around the edges. I didn't see that. I just saw somebody that wanted to clear her name, that worked hard to build her reputation, that has worked hard to stay in the position that she's in, and somebody that didn't want this sideshow to take over the circus.
All right. So let me step out for a second. I'm John Q. Citizen of Fulton County or of America, right? I have an American or a citizen interest in this case. I don't care. I'm not saying this, but I'm John Q. Citizen that lives in Kansas, in a completely different social and political environment. I don't really have much affinity for black folk, Fani Willis, Atlanta, or Fulton County. I'm interested in seeing what happens in this case because of how it weighs on the presidential election. What portions of her testimony, if any, were as her being the officer of the court and the representing the prosecution side while she's on the stand, were strategic in the actual case at hand, if any? So
let me rephrase the question. So basically, did any of her testimony have, or could it have any impact in the presidential election? Is that the question?
Right. And did she intentionally did she have any drive there?
So what's interesting about this whole criminal situation is that this is a situation of first impression. What's that mean? Basically, this ain't happened before.
Right.
So we're looking at, I mean, we're going to have to dust off the Constitution. We're going to have to dust off, you know, con law books to figure out, like, wait a minute, if Donald Trump, can he even run? He has 1 million cases against him. He has a criminal case against him. Is there anything that talks about, hey, if he's a felon, if he's convicted? This is all an area of first impression, right? So there is no answer right now, because you then have to pull authority from different states and different Supreme Courts and all kind of stuff to where you then come up with a ruling. Right? So it's so many things at play. I mean, it is one of the most intriguing law school questions because it intertwines everything. So to answer your question, I don't know if she necessarily said anything that would impact the presidential election. I think that if anything, it's giving the election more highlight.
Well, not the election itself, but the case, like the actual case that she's prosecuting. Like one of the key lines I loved Essence magazine for focusing on this, where she said, she goes, "I'm not confused. You're confused. I'm not on trial." That's
what it was, right? That was a perfect example of all those relevance objections. We kept hearing, objection, relevance. That means that what you're talking about and what you just asked me ain't got nothing to do with why we are here.
Right.
My sex positions, my, did he have sex with me at a condo or an apartment? That ain't got nothing to do with it. Right? It's not relevant. But what was so fascinating about Fani and so respectable, she heard the relevance objections, and I don't even know if people caught this, but she was like, no, it's relevant, let me tell you why. And she kept on talking. It didn't have anything to necessarily do with whether it was forensic misconduct, whether it was a conflict of interest. It's relevant because I'm about to clear my name. Right. We're not about to mince words.
The John Q. Citizens, that's, I think, where the issue is, the reason why we even have you, why we have you on the show, why it's so important, because of relevancy, right?
Exactly.
Because the character is only questioned when it's us. So that's where a lot of the buck is stopping for a bunch of people. you know, like you said, one don't have nothing to do with the other, relevancy, right? But once a liar is always a liar, especially when it's us, right? So what else could she be lying about?
What might be cool in politics is not legal in the court. I did not know how distinguished and how achieved her father was. I didn't know he was a former attorney. I didn't know that he had moved to Africa. I didn't know that he was doing a documentary. So at the end of the day, you know, this whole where did she get the cat? Who cares?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So that could come back to bite him. Yeah. But you know, he's very boisterous. And doesn't really care about that. But at the end of the day, what is acceptable in politics is not necessarily acceptable in a courtroom. And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that she testified day one. And remember when when CNN stopped covering it, she was supposed to come back and testify. I think it was on that Friday. Do y'all know that she didn't testify? And do you know it's because I said what I said? I feel like I did my case. I ain't got to get back on the stand. Sometimes that's stronger. You saying nothing is stronger than you trying to continue to argue. Because when you start arguing with fools, you forget who the fool is, right? So taking it from that perspective. Now, my understanding of where they are now is that they're going to be resuming, I think, maybe next week, because Nathan Wade's law partner is being questioned by the court in camera. What in camera means is in chambers, meaning the attorneys can't talk to him. It's only going to be him and the judge. And this is important because that was a huge legal issue that came up, was attorney-client privilege. So some of the questions that the law partner was asked was, have you ever seen this or seen that, or, you know, heard this or heard that? And he said, that's attorney-client privilege. I can't say anything. So as attorneys, under Rule 1.1 of ethics, we cannot divulge the confidences of our clients, except if they threaten to kill somebody or commit a crime. Okay? So, or unless we're ordered to talk about something. So I think that the law partner is talking to the judge, and then the judge is going to decide whether or not he has to come back up and testify. Okay. And then they're going to resume. But that also brings up other issues. What is attorney-client privilege? Is it communications? What's communications? Is that just writing, or is it observations that you make?
So detailed.
He's a witness in the motions hearing.
Okay.
So basically, I don't know who called him as a witness, if it was the prosecution or the defense, but basically he's on the stand to talk about how the finances broke down. And basically this whole thing is, when did their relationship start? When did it end? And what happened when it started? So if you all also know, former Governor Roy Barnes testified. He testified to say, she asked me to do it first, and I declined. Why did he decline? I don't want no more death threats. I'm tired of this. I am over it. Right? You know, she did a skillful job at telling her truth without muddying Mr. Wade. And that I appreciate.
Right.
I'm not going to emasculate a black man or make you make me do this. And I just thought that it was so powerful. And even thinking about, and this is, to me, I'm not making this conversation or dialogue about race, but I think that we would be completely tone deaf.
Absolutely.
If we did not acknowledge the fact that when she is sitting in the stand, she's looking back at only one person that looks like her, and that's Mr. Wade. You're trying to muddy the waters. You're trying to get evidence that has nothing to do with anything, so that the judge might say, you know, I don't really like Mr. Wade or Miss Willis, so I don't really like the fact that they did A, B, and C. You know, but at a certain point, it's an attorney's job to jump up and say objection, because if we don't make a timely objection, guess what? We waived it. So, you know, a lot of times I'll tell my client, don't talk to me. Here's a piece of paper, slide me a note, because I have to pay attention, because if I don't object when I'm supposed to object, now I've waived it. So that's why you kept hearing all those relevance objections, relevance. So then, let's say for instance, one of the relevance objections was sustained, meaning the court agreed, yeah, it's not relevant, move on. Now, the attorneys who are possibly going to lose this motion could go to a higher court, because we have the trial court, you have the Court of Appeals. You can go to the Court of Appeals now and say, listen, judge at the lower court, they got that wrong. And I should have won that objection. And but for me not winning that objection, this is how it impacted the ruling. Okay, so that's why it's important, because when you get to that higher level court, the only thing they look at is the record, and the record consists of a transcript and anything that was filed in the case.
So she wanted to make sure certain information was on the record.
Exactly.
Oh,
Because also think about, she could also end up being called to the carpet by the bar.
I was gonna,
Yeah. So I mean, we have
that.
rules that govern how we move throughout the world. So even if I was, an entrepreneur on the side doing a whole bunch of side gigs, I'm an attorney first
right.
under the code of ethics. So she could get called to the carpet for the bar to talk about that. And so now she's already made her record, she's perfected her record, she's clarified, and now she can use that, or that can be used. So it's a lot of moving parts that are just so amazing about how this has gotten from a 18 co-defendant election case to now we are transitioning into people's bar licenses. I think it still just goes to show how this one thing is touching so many areas that it has become a circus.
Right.
And so now Fani's having to put out fires in every aspect. She's having to defend her name. She's having to justify why she moved. She's having to justify why her daughter has moved to a certain state and did somebody else like, this is wild.
Yeah.
This is completely wild.
Yeah.
And so I think that what I did notice from the judge and his body language was he was over it. Because even after a while, you got to think, nobody thought Fani was going to testify, probably. Right? And so they probably didn't have examination questions done for her because
they're prepared.
In anticipation, like, she might not testify. So,
Right.
So when she comes in and just does what she does and says, I'm ready, give me these papers, the judge looked like he was annoyed because by the end of the day, the people that were sitting in the gallery, the attorneys, they were asking the same questions that had already been asked. Are you paying attention? Like, are you listening to what's happening?
Right.
So I just think it's, even looking at people's body language, it's remarkable.
Cherese, speaking of body language, what would you say to people who described her body language as aggressive? That was a word that was thrown around a lot in descriptors, on the news. They were saying she was very combative.
I think they're absolutely correct.
Okay.
I think they're absolutely correct. She came across rough around the edges. I think that she came across aggressive. I think that she came across authentic. She came across like, I am about to tell my story because y'all not gonna shut me up no more.
Right.
Yeah, I am taking control of this narrative. You can't hold me down. I've worked too hard to get here.
This is
and
crazy.
think about, you spend your hard-earned money to buy a house you can't live in.
You can't even live in.
Let that marinate in your spirit. Y'all have ousted me from my house. Y'all have made me go into hiding. Like, this wasn't rehearsed to where, like, because I'll even tell my clients, you answer yes, you answer no, and then you will explain. If they don't let you explain, I got your back. Just do what I asked you to do. But that was just her being tired. Tired. I am having to defend myself about a relationship that I was bankrolling.
Hello.
Please. Which is why she came across as credible to me.
Yeah.
On top of, we then compare it to Nathan Wade. He was playing semantics, trying to get trying to get the defense to define certain words. Like, he just looked like you rehearsed and your attorney told you to play this game.
Right.
But then when you get Fani up there corroborating it, then you get her daddy being just as authentic. Just as authentic.
I loved hearing her dad say,
Daddy Willis.
talk about having, I always told her to make sure that she has 6 months worth of money in the safe in the house. When they were asking her, where did she get that amount of this cash from? And then when she got up there, she said, my daddy told me. I said,
I did. Like, it's a black thing, right? And I love how respectful he was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was trying to say anybody's racist or anything, but he was just telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And so he was educating and took that time in the stand to educate these people
how he raised her to be,
about how he raised his daughter and black culture. I really don't think they're going to disqualify her.
You don't?
I don't. The body language of the judge, the rulings that he was making, he did a fantastic job trying to keep it tailored, focused on what the legal issues are, right? Which was there a conflict of interest, and was there forensic misconduct? And then if you outline the 3 things you think are forensic conduct, please tell me what position we had sex in is relevant.
Hello.
Ooh, Jesus Christ.
Make it make sense.
Yes.
That's so embarrassing, man.
I don't even know if Nathan Wade's wife is alleging an affair. I don't even know if she's alleging adultery as a ground for divorce. The only thing from that divorce case,
I thought that's how it came about.
it's the finances.
In her divorce.
So my understanding is that it's the finances that came up. So when you do a divorce case, you have to do what's called a marital balance sheet, meaning everybody has to turn it. You turn your stuff in, I turn my stuff in. You turn your bank statements in, I turn my bank statements in. We figure it out. So basically, what happens is if you are spending money that has been made during the marriage in support of a whether it's extramarital or considered adultery, but basically you need to put that money back into the marital pot so we can split it back up. Okay? That's called equitable division. Equitable don't mean 50-50. Equitable just means fair. And so if you spending and balling out on Fani Willis, then you need to put that money back here.
Yeah.
Which is why it was so important for her to testify. I bankrolled it. He reimbursed me, or I reimbursed him, and then they called a waitress, right, from Napa, the winery. They called her in to justify and say she paid cash. And that's what I'm thinking. It didn't really have anything to do with her, like, oh, she busted up this marriage. But when you look at the media, she looks like a homewrecker. And so now you get somebody who's accused of being a homewrecker on a stand that now has to defend her integrity and reputation. I'm gonna be pissed off too.
Right.
But I mean, but again, like to layman's eyes and ears, like it is a lot of drama. To a legal ear, this is fascinating because it literally covers everything we learned in law school. Civil procedure. You know, what motion was filed? Did you respond timely? You have 33 days to respond by the mailbox rule. Okay, so now we have that. Now we're doing evidence law. Was the objection sustained? Are we dealing with character evidence? Are we dealing with privilege? Now we're dealing with family law. Well, sir, you put in this interrogatory, blah, 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 in your divorce case. So now you change your testimony. Because when you do those interrogatories in discovery, you have to do what's called a verification, meaning I swear and affirm that everything I put in this document is true and correct. So if you lied in this document or you're lying now, which one is it? Because you've committed perjury either way. So what Georgia law says is basically anything that you have spent or accrued during your marriage is marital property. Because now, you know, what's equitable? Well, hell, we weren't even together, so who cares? And she reimbursed me. So we have a governing body called the bar that if we step out of bounds, we put stuff in pleadings that's not true and we know it ain't true, or we haven't investigated, any kind of misconduct that an attorney does is sanctionable, meaning we can get punished, we can get sanctioned, we can get a bar complaint, we can get a bar grievance. That's all public record too. So when you go to the bar website and you type in somebody's name, you can tell if they have a disciplinary history. And the bar will attach it to the Supreme Court's decision on sanctioning you. So that's why this is kind of like, yo, I'm not about to put my career and my license on the line for nobody. For this nigga. And that, we kind of dovetail into defamation. Third party statements, or statements made to a third party that are knowingly not true. Right? I don't do defamation law, but what I do know is that half of those fail because you can't prove damages. That's the key. So you got to prove damages. So let's say, for instance, Fani loses her job, she loses monies and all kind of stuff. She might have a claim to defamation, which is a civil action. Dog, this is extraordinary. So Fani's body language to another lawyer, when she hit you with one of these, you're done. I have assassinated you. I have destroyed you. And then the mic drop was when she didn't testify the next day. Because a case of this magnitude with 18 co-defendants, you got to prepare 18 direct examinations, 18 cross-examinations, and then you still got to do your witnesses. This is massive. So for Fani to be ballsy enough, one, to go ahead and indict and take it to an indictment phase, speaks volumes. You can't scare me. I don't scare easily. Then you think about, all right, well, I'm ready for trial in March. Well, I don't even remember when the indictments came out, but a case of this magnitude being ready for a criminal trial. You said what? My point is for her to be like, I'm ready in March.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's scary to a defendant. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Because usually defendants will file speedy trial demands like, hey, try me. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go now. I already knew. I think it was, a day, maybe 2 days after the indictments came out that 2 or 3 took pleas. So I was like, oh, yeah. It's on and popping. People just need to know, don't believe everything you see in the media. Do your research. And if you don't know something, please don't put it on TikTok acting like you do. Please don't ask me questions or question me about things that I do for a professional living. I have a license, and you stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Follow me on TikTok at Kentucky's KYZ Georgia GEORGIA Peach PEACH. I am also on Instagram as well as Facebook.
And the law firm, drop that information.
Law firm, Clark, Lowry, and Lumpkin. Hello to my beautiful law partners. I told y'all, I think I may have let a cuss word slip, but my bad. But yes, we are Clark, Lowry, and Lumpkin.
Truth. No chaser.